Hey, let's look at the relationship between sensitivity and the problems in your life. Because a lot of people have been born in a certain way, whereas you feel the depths of your consciousness. And that's not a flaw, but it can be one of the most difficult parts to integrate, to understand, to start to be aware of your ego's reactions. Because when people are sensitive, usually the nature of their path is they don't know why they're so sensitive, right? And then it's initially labeled as like, maybe you ask the question, what's wrong with me? I just know that a lot of people grow up and they're not taught the depths of understanding how to feel what they feel, right? How to actually process the moment to moment emotional charges that arise on a day to day basis. And we don't need pharmaceutical or doctor like labels to start to understand ourselves. You don't need to label yourself any certain way. You need to look at yourself. So, with being hypersensitive or just being empathetic, emotionally aware, being able to feel the energy in the room, it's difficult because you can see through people. You can read what they're unconsciously communicating. They're not even aware that they're communicating. So that gives you an extra layer of responsibility, doesn't it? It gives you a challenge, a challenging way to move through life when you're able to feel what others aren't even aware that they're sharing. So the thing is that it doesn't mean you're better or you're worse. The sensitivity isn't meant to be invested into comparison. It would actually be spent with comparison. The sensitivity is invested when it's inwards, when you have compassion for others. So, for example, right? Someone unconsciously communicates an aggression or a what's the word for it? It's sort of like passive aggressive. When someone's being rude with you, but on a not so rude level. They're kind of like playing with you. They're not conscious of what's happening, or maybe they are, but it's your responsibility to be in the situation without importance, without seriousness, with looseness, so that you can communicate with others. And through communicating with them, you can feel the mirror. Because even people who are just maybe sporadic or a bit unaware of what they create, they're not bad. They're not good. They're, you know, that moment is for you and for them. So the question is almost like, what do you do in a situation where you're getting a lot of input and it may be difficult to be still with it? What you do is you look at the reactions you're having and you don't judge the outer circumstance as in you're a victim, but you look at your relationship to the environment, to the people, to the circumstance, to the energy, and you decipher that relationship. You don't add to it. You don't say, why did this happen to me? You say, okay, this happened. What is the fruit within that moment? What is the fruit within that situation, within that conversation? Because it's that negation, that sort of simplistic taking what's there, unraveling it, rather than adding to it with projecting your experiences, your preferences onto the situation. When you can look at what your life is very simply and raw, then you get to new levels of depth within understanding what that moment was giving you, what that moment was showing. And this is how you change sensitivity into being a power. You turn what used to be a curse into a strength. The act of not running from who you are, where you are, being how you are, and you just start to look at the roots of what created how you feel, what created your reactions. You observe how your memory, your experiences, and your knowledge is projecting onto what you're feeling. That sensitivity can be like a running river. You know, when the river's not moving, it's not the most pleasant thing to be around or swimming. But when you're in a moving stream, that's essentially what your sensitivity does. Your sensitivity is the current of the stream. The sensitivity is the flow of the river. And as you feel what you need to feel, then that'll strengthen. So the rain's picking up. We're going to end this one here. Hopefully this was at least insightful a little bit. It's just important to go into depth in relationship to, okay, we are who we are how we are, we feel what we feel. Now can we unravel, decipher, look at the granular details of what creates our states of being? Because when you realize that you're not a victim of what you feel, then you have the power to create your entire life. You create your states, you create a holistic dance, a symbiosis between what you can't control and what you can control. And then you realize, okay, well, controlling really isn't the game. It's the game of feeling what's here, what's always been here, and using that awareness to change your relationship to your everyday life. And as that happens, then your life is reborn. Then that essence of freedom, which you've created, can radiate. And the world changes. When you do the work and you radiate clarity, the world changes around you. So, if this was enjoyable, just check the link in the description. I can't work with too many people, but the right individuals, I'm open to working with one-on-one. And hey, I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. Share it with a friend if you know someone who needs to hear something like this. Have a wonderful day.